So, right before I start, I will straight up say that walking into this movie, I knew two things. One being that this was going to be a movie made into two parts, and they were only going to get the first half right now. Second half, I believe, is next year. I'm so glad they're not making us wait too long because if they really did this like Star Wars, where it was like every other year, or like the old Star Wars, where it was every 3 years, this would be way too long of a wait. Like we need to know what happens. And so my ultimate idea about this movie, my ultimate fear was, what is a two-part movie possible to make into one full-length good movie? I have not seen the Harry Potter two-parter movie, but I have seen the two-parter for the Hunger Games. And I remember when it ended feeling like, yeah, it doesn't feel like the story's complete. However, there was a good resolution with finding our friend Pita, getting him back and him joining the team and seeing what's going on with him. So there was an interesting idea there. While I will say Hunger Games is pretty generic shit, and I'm not sure how it got so popular, um, I will also say that it did the two-parter probably the best it could have done, a two-parter story. You know, it had a beginning, middle, and end. It had had a climax. It had what it needed to have to justify it being a movie. Does the Infinity Wars do that? The Infinity Wars is basically a giant battle sequence. It's like almost the entire movie is a battle sequence. And I've heard some people say that they managed to fit all the characters in and give them all time to shine. I disagree, but they did some smart things here and there. One thing I know we all freaked out when we saw how different the characters looked in the initial images, but it's very smart changing all their looks because it tells you basically what you needed to know about them, which is that Captain America, when you see his costume in this one, that white star is black. He has a black star on his chest now. And he doesn't have red and blue red and white stripes on his blue shirt anymore. Now it's just pure black. You know, all the American colors are black, so now he wears black and blue. And it is perfect for that angle of a man who has ran away from the government and who's in the out in hiding. He has Black Widow with him. Her hair is different now. Complete. It's not just a different color. It looks. It's not curly at all. It's like a straight blonde. It makes her look different. And it makes you be like. You feel like these are necessary evolutions of these characters. So even though I'll straight up say it right now. Certain characters don't have as much dialogue as you would really like. They still kind of make some sense. I don't want to go too much into the spoiler stuff, but basically, certain characters are treated like infantrymen in a horde, as you could probably have expected from that trailer where you see all these people running. And then certain other characters are treated more like they're part of the main story behind the scenes things. This is a smart decision for when it comes to is a smart decision when it comes to characters. When you have this many characters, it's a smart decision. And then also splitting up the different characters into groups is a very smart decision, and that's something that you can kind of already get a sense of in the trailers again when you see everyone running. You can kind of get a sense that like there's people who are doing different things in different scenarios. And it's not exactly how you think it'll be if you've only watched the trailers. It's not exactly how that is. It's not. The great thing about the Infinity War trailers is that they never spoiled the whole damn movie like how Batman vs Superman famously did. In fact, like a lot of good trailers, you kind of have a sense of like what the scale of the battles, but you really don't know what's going on in the movie just from the trailers. And the movie went in a different direction I didn't think it would go in. And it's a very different direction. And I'm not talking about the overall plot. I'm talking about what happened on the journey to get to that ending. That's what happened. Because I know Thanos is coming. I know he's going to fight the Avengers, okay? That part's obvious. But what I'm saying is where the fights were taken, when they happened, who was participating. That stuff is a lot different from if you just watch the trailers. You might not realize what's really going on there. And so again, a lot of good things to expect just walking into this movie. And then of course there's what else should I talk about? The characters it focuses on more are great, and but yeah, that's the thing. It does focus on particular characters more than others. Some characters barely have any lines, and they barely do anything. So it's oh yeah, and there is some cameos that you might not expect, and you should expect everyone, and everyone is basically here. There are some crazy cameos here. There's one in particular that really caught me off guard, but as I saw it, I was like, okay, that makes perfect sense now. And I know some people don't care that much, but for me, I cared. I was really glad to see that character in the movie. And then also a lot of people. Well, you know what? So what would I say? Well, what is my actual opinion of the movie? Well, so when I walked in the movie, I knew it was gonna be in two parts. But the other thing I knew was that I didn't watch it on opening midnight, and normally I watch all the big movies I'm excited for on opening day, like Thursday at 7 p.m. the day before it comes out. That's when I normally watch these movies. Instead, I watched it on Saturday at 7 p.m., which means I had all my friends who went on midnight and all my friends who went on opening day. A lot of my friends saw it basically, and they all told me one thing: it was great. I'm thankful they didn't tell me any hints of anything. They didn't even tell me anything about it. They just said it's great and worth watching. Will I say this? For me, when it comes to Marvel and the Avengers, those are all worth watching. None of them are like... Some of them, I have things I disagree with. I think most people have mixed feelings about Avengers too. But for me, I care. I'm so invested in these stories. I'm so invested in this huge overarching plot that I don't care. I don't care if there's a few bad things here or there. So when I say what I'm about to say, when I left the theater, my friends I was with, they said it was great too. I felt kind of alienated here, and I'm going to try to explain more on my actual opinion in the spoiler section, because then I can explain it, which is why I'm doing a spoiler section. But my initial reaction was one of mixed feelings, and I would probably say even more mixed than Avengers 2. And I was shocked that so many of my friends said it was great without anything else. But I'm wondering now, once I tell them I've seen it, we can discuss spoilers. I'm wondering then if maybe I'll get a true understanding of what they're talking about, because for me, there's some decisions that are very crazy, and for some of you out there, just hear me say, like, decisions being crazy, I don't like change, stuff like that. That might get you excited. That might be exactly what you want to fucking hear right now. And I gotta say, if you wanted to see something shocking and change, you want to see Thanos, and you want Thanos to be a threat, Thanos is one of the best villains. Thanos is a fucking terrific villain, and I'm not just talking about in sense of intimidation, which, yes, hell yes, he's intimidating. But also his relationship with characters like from the Guardians of the Galaxy, his relationship with just like being a presence in the universe, and how he's been a part of this Marvel universe for so long, how they haven't really built him up over the years, which is funny because the team up movies have more time to focus on the villain, because we already kind of know these characters and what they're like. But Avengers 1 focused a lot on character interactions and them all becoming a team for the first time, which will be important for Avengers 2 and 3. And it also focused a lot on Loki and how he fits into the big picture, and how Loki's going to further on exist within the Marvel Universe thanks to being a part of the Thor franchise. So, Avengers 1 was terrific. And also, Loki being the villain in particular is a fantastic reason to get Thor involved with Earthlings. Um, yeah, that was something about Avengers 2 was it was like Thor was just kind of there because he wanted to help out and he was having fun. Like, it was like he was just like, I'm here because I'm an Avenger, even though, like, why would he care? Why should he care? And that's something that I think this movie in particular, um, that's the thing. Even though I really, really liked Ultron, he's definitely the kind of villain who needs to exist in the second movie, because why is Thor's reasoning for being there has to be like basically that he just wants to chill, because to otherwise, to me, I feel like Thor would only have to be involved if it really requires him. If there's an event that wouldn't require him. That's something I like about Captain America 2, is that a lot of those events didn't need to require Iron Man, or Thor or Hulk. It was about Captain America and Black Widow doing what they do best. They're the two soldiers of the team, so it's about their story. And because of that, we even got to meet newer characters like Falcon, and Bucky got way more time to shine. And that's something that makes Captain America 1 and 2 great duo set of movies. Captain America 3 isn't so much like as part of the Captain America family. It's more like a it's more like a spin-off of the Avengers movies, but with Captain America being the main character, which is fine. To me that's great, because it's like the Avengers movies should focus on different characters every so often. Avengers 1 definitely seems to focus a lot on Iron Man. Avengers 2, kind of the same, kind of Iron Man getting more of the focus. And so just having Captain America have his own, that's why doing Civil War in a Captain America movie was smart. And then, so none of those stories needed to have Thor in them. And now, could you imagine trying to explain why Thor is either going to sign up or not sign up with the government? He's like, I just leave. I don't care. I'll just come later when you need me. I don't care. Like, why would he care? So yeah. And of course, Thor 3 explains what's going on during the events of Captain America 3, and it does it very well. So for this movie, every character being there makes ton of sense, and they do not backtrack at all. It starts right where Thor 3 left off. It starts right fucking there. And the universe is all based in that turmoil after Captain America. Basically, this is like post Spider-Man. This is after Spider-Man Homecoming. This is after Thor 3. This is, after, this is what's going on in the movies. And it picks up right there. And if you have not seen, oh no, shit, it picks up after Black Panther as well. If you haven't seen Black Panther, again, this starts right after Black Panther at the same time as right after Thor 3. It's bam, right there. So if you have not seen Black Panther, they will not try to explain these characters to you or make them likable. If you watch Avengers 1, Avengers 1 is a great, fantastic standalone movie. You don't really need to see all of the Avengers movies to enjoy Avengers 1, because they still set it up like, here's your introduction to Captain America. Here's your introduction to Iron Man. Here's your introduction to Thor. Here's your introduction to Hulk. They do it one at a time, and they do it that way on purpose, so that way it's a great movie for fans and newcomers who might maybe watch those first movies after Avengers caught their attention, and now they're more invested. And so now that we have Avengers 3, it's like, if you haven't seen Doctor Strange, you're going to be like, what is this fucking guy doing? He's this weird magic man. I don't give a shit. Like, you need to see that. You need to see Doctor Strange. You need to see, you might not need to see Spider-Man, but you need to at least see Civil War. You need to see Black Panther. You need to see Thor 3. And some of those movies require you, of course, to watch Avengers 2. So, it's like, really, you can't, and again, to watch Avengers 2, you probably need to watch Avengers 1. So, and to watch Avengers 2 and Captain America Civil War, you're going to need to watch Captain America 2, because a lot of that has to do with Captain America 2. So it's like, again, there's a lot of this stuff that they all have little... You need to watch everything. You had to have seen everything. This movie is not made for people who this is their first one. No. There's certain Marvel movies you could possibly skip and be okay, but you're better off going back and rewatching them later. This one, no. You need to watch these movies before watching them. So that is going to be probably my spoiler-free review. Right there. And I'll say my final opinion is that I can't have an opinion. For one, I've only seen the movie one time, and for you to, that's like when people first saw the Star Wars Last Jedi, and they all were so annoyed by the first scene that they didn't like the rest of the movie, and then they went and watched it a second time, and they realized it wasn't that bad. They realized it was actually pretty good, because they were able to enjoy the good parts more, because the bad parts weren't shocking them in such a negative way. When I started this movie, I don't know if I want to say that, but basically, I don't want to watch this movie. I don't want to give you guys my real honest opinion of this movie, not really until part 2 comes out, because this movie is, while it's fantastic in a lot of aspects, and Thanos is done fantastic and super well, it can't really say I can't really say overall if I liked it or hated it. There are, like I said, there's pacing problems. There's problems with characters not getting enough screen time. A lot of the fears I had, I feel like came to light. And some people are saying they weren't an issue. Some people are saying those fears aren't a problem. And you could say that might be because we've seen these characters so often, there's nothing left to learn about them. And I honestly can't agree to that. And I'll get into that more in the spoiler section. Like I said, the character who's developed the absolute most was Thanos. And this movie's definitely got a big focus on characters like Iron Man, Thor, Thanos, and I would even say Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, and the Guardians of the Galaxy. And that's good, because this movie is... What this movie does well is exactly what the first Avengers did well all over again, which is Avengers 1 introduced us to funny comedy movies, because the other superhero movies, while they had jokes and quips in them, even the first Iron Mans weren't hysterically funny. They were more like, oh, well, this is cool. This is Tony Stark. He's a smartass. He's a likable character because of that. That's what it had. It didn't have hilarious scenes that were legitimately funny, how mainly because this is supposed to be so serious, and yet these characters are just having a fun time. They're just enjoying themselves, saying they're literally looking at the audience saying, "Isn't this awesome? We're all fucking teamed up. This is great. The Hulk is here. This is great." Yeah, that's all you needed to do. that's all you needed. And that's kind of what this does, but not to the extent of what you're thinking, where Avengers 1 had a very lighthearted tone, where it's this is a fun movie. What this movie does well is it does the Marvel comedy well. The comedy is still there, even though this is definitely not that tone. I promise you, not that tone. But the comedy is there. Because the Guardians are there, man. And Tony Stark's there. And seeing personalities like Tony Stark and Doctor Strange clash, that's exactly why we wanted to see Avengers 1 in the first place. This movie benefits from seeing all of these characters clash. And you will see Tony Stark clash with Doctor Strange. You will see Tony Stark clash with Peter Quill, a.k.a. Star-Lord. You will see that. You will see Thor clash with Star-Lord. You will see what these characters have to say to each other. And it's been a long time coming. It's been, and it delivers on what you want it to deliver on in that respect of seeing these cool characters team up. And it's the great thing about Marvel was they didn't completely blow their load, During Avengers 2, they could have easily... Because Guardians 1 came out after Avengers 1. So during the first Avengers, they used everything they had. But then after that, that's when Ant-Man became a thing. And that's when the Guardians became a thing. And that's when, there was more movies, and they didn't completely blow their load. They didn't completely blow their load. And they held back. They held back. And Wakanda and Vibranium, that was being built up for so long, and Black Panther was finally the execution of seeing Wakanda and Vibranium. Remember Captain America's shield and Bucky's armor both made of vibranium. This has been a slow build up, and they never blew their load completely. But I will say this: Civil War also doesn't blow the load, even though Civil War introduces characters like Spider-Man and introduces characters like Black Panther and shows them fighting and interacting with the other Marvel heroes before they get their own standalone movies. However, you don't get to see Spider-Man and Black Panther interact with every single hero in this movie. I'll say it straight up. There's too many characters. So the fact that they all got to interact with each other in Captain America Civil War is actually a good thing, because because then now when you watch this movie, you're not seeing the same thing you already saw. And so it was actually pretty clever the way they did it. So overall, I have to say, very smart and forward thinking, but also very smart thinking given what you currently have. Very smart thinking looking at what's going on in the whole universe, what have we already shown, what have we already done, and in that sense, the execution is fabulous. So there's a lot of things to like about this movie, but it feels like half a movie. There's too many characters, there's pacing issues, and so what I have to say is my final verdict is I can't really give you one until part 2. But I like what I see so far. I like what I've seen so far. I think there were better decisions that could have been made. I think there's lots of better decisions that could have been made. But overall, the execution is not terrible. There is some Avengers 2 flashbacks for me personally. And a lot of characters who I really love didn't get as much development as I wanted to. But then in other cases, does this movie feel like it could be essentially Guardians 3? Well, not essentially 100% Guardians 3, but the Guardians are in it enough to justify this team up to where we've been waiting to see the Guardians. And also, when it comes to the Guardians, there's still promises we haven't seen with them yet. The load of Guardians, the Guardians of the Galaxy load has not been blown in this movie. Just because they teamed up with the other Avengers doesn't mean we've completely blown the load of the Guardians. There's still things we can see. There's still time. There's still new things. And so that might be explored more in Infinity Wars Part 2. But from what I can tell so far, there's still a lot of potential for a Guardians 3. And a lot of potential, to see characters hanging out with other characters. And there's a lot of things there. So at first I was going to put a spoiler section in this video, and I think instead I'm going to make a second video. That way you don't accidentally let this video play on too long. Normally my videos are extremely long, but considering this is already 20 minutes, I will just make a probably even longer video, knowing me, just discussing spoilers. And so I will do that then. That way, no one can be upset. And I'll go ahead and start that in a second. But, that's my opinion. My opinion is I don't want to give it a score, like a number score, but, because, grading it as its own movie, this movie is a movie that requires you to see, 10 movies before you watch it. And then after you watch it, you need to go watch the sequel. The sequel's not out yet. So if you want to wait, you have time to wait. If you want to see what all the fuss is about, you have time to wait. You have time to catch up and watch these movies. So, but overall, my general impression, the movie was good. And but I did leave that theater shocked. And let me tell you, when it ended, when the credits appeared on screen, not a single clap, not a single fucking clap. And that is shocking in itself, because every superhero movie in Star Wars movie and everything. There's this obnoxious clapping, obnoxious behavior happening. People going woo. You get all of that when it comes to superhero movies. This time, not only did not a single person clap, not a single person stood up and walked out. Not a single fucking one stood up and walked out. We all waited for that credit sequence. There's only one credit sequence, and it's at the very, very, very end. It is the last thing you see. It's after all of the credits. But that ending credit sequence, it's there. I'll say that much. So yeah, we'll have to pick it back up in the spoilers, and I would have to ask no one put spoilers in the comments. Yeah, you could think of this as more of like your general reaction and what you first thought of the movie for those of you who've only seen it one time, or you could think about what you thought during your first time. So that was what I think of my first time. I guess the best thing I gave it as a number score, I'd probably say like I'd probably say an 8. Nah, maybe even a 7. I don't know why people are being so generous to this movie. It definitely has flaws, but all in all, I would say it's good. And because I watched it, it's probably going to very much so enhance the next part dramatically. And their decision to put a lot of the character development on Thanos himself was very, very smart. Because this is not the first movie, or second movie, nor third movie we've had with these characters. This is only the third movie with the Guardians. And so for them to get more screen time is fucking perfectly logical. A lot of the characters you've seen the most get the least amount of screen time, and that's kind of the way it should be. But even though I just said that, I can completely contradict myself in the spoiler section because I already can think of examples that don't work there. But the fact that certain characters get more screen time, I feel like it was mostly done well and appropriate. So I'll catch you guys later. Yeah.